Ever get that feeling like you want to really dive into something, understand a topic inside and out, but without getting lost in a million pages of details?
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's what we're doing here on the deep dive. We're finding the fastest way for you to become an expert. And today we're tackling a really fascinating, kind of intense topic.
Oh, yeah.
We're going deep into the hand-to-hand combat techniques from the U.S. Army Special Forces Manual.
Really?
Yeah, it's called ST 31204, and it's all about how Special Forces soldiers use karate and taekwondo in, well, some pretty extreme situations.
So, what's the main takeaway from this manual? What's the goal?
Well, when you look at this document, it hits you right away. This isn't some kind of self-defense class or, like a martial arts tournament.
Right.
This is about what a soldier does when they've lost all their weapons.
Oh, wow.
Like, imagine that you're in a combat zone, you've got nothing but your bare hands, and you still have to complete your mission, defend yourself and your team.
That's some high stakes stuff.
Yeah, it is. And for everyone listening, even if you're never going to be in that situation, this deep dive is going to give you a look into how these elite soldiers train, the core logic of close combat, the aha moments you get when you see how efficient and brutal these techniques can be.
Sounds intense, but also really interesting.
Exactly. It is. So to kick things off, let's think about the history of hand-to-hand combat.
Okay. Yeah.
It's easy to think of martial arts as something new, but this manual points out that unarmed fighting has been around for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers and civilians have always needed a way to defend themselves when they don't have weapons.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's a basic human instinct.
Totally.
And the manual even traces the organized forms of unarmed combat back to ancient China.
Really?
Yeah, they suggest it might have started as a way to fight off invaders.
Hmm.
And here's a really cool connection. Around the year 1000 AD, Buddhist monks started developing these techniques to protect themselves from bandits, robber bams.
Oh, wow. Like the peaceful monks.
Yeah, exactly. And the manual says this is like a direct line to how judo and karate developed.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, who knew?
Not me.
And then from China, these fighting styles made their way to Okinawa.
Okinawa.
It's an island near mainland China, and they had a lot of cultural exchange going on.
Oh, okay.
Now, the manual highlights this really important event in Okinawan history. They banned weapons on the island.
Whoa, a complete ban.
Yeah, and think about the impact of that. Suddenly, people had to find new ways to defend themselves.
I bet that led to some pretty serious innovation in hand-to-hand fighting.
You got it. That's exactly what happened. So this fighting style they called Okinawan-te, which was already influenced by Chinese Kempo, evolved into what we know as karate today.
Which means?
Empty hand.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the manual also incorporates taekwondo, which is Korean for the way of foot and fist. And the cool thing is that all these styles, Okinawan, Japanese, and Korean, they share a lot of the same basic techniques.
So they took the most effective parts and put them all together.
Exactly. It's like they distilled the essence of hand-to-hand combat from these different cultures.
That's really fascinating how these different cultures influenced each other and how these fighting styles evolved over time.
It is. And this Special Forces manual, it's like they took all that history and picked out the techniques that are most relevant for, for soldiers in combat.
Yeah, they had to make sure it was practical and effective for their specific needs.
Right. So let's get into the principles behind these techniques, like what makes them so effective. And it's not just about being strong, there's a real science to it.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious about that.
So the manual says the power of a strike, whether it's a punch or a kick, depends on how fast you deliver it. The faster the strike, the more force it has.
Makes sense. The faster it hits, the harder it hits.
Exactly. So the goal is to be as fast as possible without losing any power.
Right, so it's not just about speed. It's about that combination of speed and power.
Exactly. And it's not just about how fast your arm or leg moves. It's also about where that power is focused.
Okay, so like precision.
Yeah, the manual really emphasizes that you have to concentrate all your force on the exact point of impact at the exact moment you hit.
So you're not just swinging wildly, you're aiming for a specific spot.
Absolutely. And they even say that a bare fist can be more damaging than a gloved fist.
Really? Why is that?
Because with a bare fist, all that force is concentrated on a smaller area, your knuckles.
Oh, I see. So it's like focusing the force of a hammer on the nail head.
Precisely. And to do this, you have to use the muscles in your whole body, not just your arm or leg. It's about channeling all your energy into that point of impact.
So it's a whole body movement.
Yeah, and that brings us to another key principle: opposite and equal reaction. It's a basic law of physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Oh, yeah, I remember that from school.
Right. So the manual gives some great examples of how this applies to fighting. When you throw a punch with one hand, you pull your other hand back to your hip at the same time.
Why is that?
It helps you generate more power and stay balanced.
Okay, so it's like a counterbalance.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're punching, you also push off with your back leg.
Right, to add more force to the punch.
Precisely. So you're using your whole body to create that powerful, balanced movement.
It's all connected.
And that leads us to another really important element: concentration. You have to be totally focused in the moment, aware of everything your opponent is doing.
So you can react quickly.
Exactly. You need to be able to see any openings they give you, anticipate their blocks, so you can counterattack effectively.
Right, so it's not just about physical strength, it's about mental focus, too.
Absolutely. And the manual makes it clear that this mental focus is crucial, especially in a high-stress combat situation.
Yeah, in that kind of situation, a clear head could be the difference between life and death.
For sure. Now, the manual focuses specifically on striking techniques, both for attack and defense.
Okay, so what about things like throws and grappling?
It explicitly says those aren't covered. This is all about staying on your feet and using your hands and feet as weapons.
Gotcha. So let's break down those striking techniques, starting with the hand techniques.
Okay, so we've got punching and striking.
Now, isn't a punch just a punch? Why make that distinction?
Well, the manual defines a punch as a direct blow to the target, like a straight punch in boxing.
Oh, okay.
But striking is a broader category. It can be a direct blow or a circular blow, like a hook or an overhand punch.
So a wider range of hand movements.
Exactly. Now let's talk about foot techniques.
All right, what do they got?
We've got the snap kick, the thrust kick, and stomping.
Oh, stomping. That sounds brutal.
It is. So the snap kick is all about speed. You basically whip your leg out from a bent knee and make contact with your toe or the instep of your boot.
It's like a quick jab with your foot.
Exactly. Then there's the thrust kick, which is more about power. You extend your leg like you're punching with your foot, using your heel to strike.
Okay, so that's more like a powerful push with your leg.
Right. And stomping, well, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, you're using your foot like a hammer.
Pretty much. Now, the manual also talks about different stances, like how you position your body.
Right. Your stance is important in any martial art.
Exactly. And they categorize them as natural, fighting, or supporting. These stances affect how you move, how much power you generate, and how well you can absorb impact.
So your stance is your foundation.
Exactly. Then they talk about alignment, which is how you're facing your opponent.
Okay, like, are you facing them directly or at an angle?
Right. You've got front alignment, where your shoulders are square to your opponent, oblique alignment at a 45-degree angle, and side alignment at a 90-degree angle.
So your alignment changes what targets you present and what attacks you can make.
Exactly. And then there are movements, the different ways you can change your position or stance.
Like stepping, dodging, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they categorize them as stepping, sliding, and turning. It's all about constantly adjusting your position to gain an advantage.
It's like a dance, but a dangerous one.
Right. So now let's talk about how they actually teach these techniques.
Okay, how do they train these soldiers?
The manual lays out a very structured training program with 3 phases.
Okay, so they break it down into steps.
Yeah, it starts with the basic phase, which is 8 hours of training on the fundamental techniques.
Like the building blocks.
Exactly. Then you move on to the intermediate phase, which is 48 hours, focusing on attacking and counterattacking.
So they start applying those basics.
Right. And they also work on footwork, stance, alignment, and more advanced striking techniques.
Okay, so it's getting more intense.
Yeah. And then there's the advanced phase, which is 60 hours of training, reinforcing everything they've learned, and adding even more complex techniques.
So it's a gradual progression, starting with the basics and building up from there.
Exactly. And it's interesting that they also integrate physical fitness training alongside the hand-to-hand combat training.
Makes sense. You got to be in good shape to pull off these moves.
Definitely. And the manual emphasizes some key principles for effective training. The first one is mastering the basics.
Yeah, you can't build a house without a strong foundation.
Right. And they stress the importance of consistent practice because these skills have to become second nature.
Like, you don't want to have to think about it in a real fight.
Exactly. And then There's a pretty stark reminder of what this training is really for. When your opponent is vulnerable, you have to press the attack decisively.
I'm not messing around.
Nope. This is about developing a lethal skill, not for sport or anything like that.
It's serious business.
Yeah. Now, the manual also lays out specific criteria for instructors.
Okay, so not just anyone can teach this stuff.
Right. They have to be physically fit, they have to be good leaders, and they have to have mastered all the basic techniques themselves.
So they lead by example.
Yeah, and there's even a warning against instructors teaching their own styles or making things up.
Oh, wow. They want to make sure everyone's learning the same standardized technique.
Exactly. That's important for consistency and effectiveness across all units.
Makes sense. And they even recommend a specific ratio of instructors to students,
Yeah, to ensure there's proper supervision.
which is really important considering how potentially dangerous this training can be.
Absolutely. Safety is a huge priority. They say all training sessions have to be closely supervised, no horseplay, and they're very careful about when students can start practicing full speed, full power strikes.
Yeah, you don't want people getting seriously hurt before they're ready.
Right. They also say you can't let students practice full power strikes until they've developed the ability to, to kill with their blows.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it really shows you the level of skill they're aiming for. They also talk about how they use specific commands to teach the techniques.
Oh, so it's like a drill sergeant calling out orders.
Kind of. They break down each technique into steps, and each step has a specific command.
Okay, so everyone knows exactly what to do and when to do it.
Exactly, and they even have preparatory commands like hop to get everyone ready.
It's all about precision and timing.
Right. And they also emphasize the importance of calisthenics for building strength, flexibility, and stamina.
Yeah, you need a strong foundation to be able to fight effectively.
Absolutely. And they break down calisthenics into different categories like flexibility exercises, warm-up routines, strength-building exercises, drills for speed and reaction time, and exercises for stamina.
It's a comprehensive approach to physical conditioning.
Yeah, they cover all the bases. And the good news is you don't need a fancy gym or anything to train.
Really? What kind of space do they recommend?
They say any area with enough open space will do about 8 square feet per pair of students.
So you even train in a park or a field.
Exactly. It's very practical.
Makes sense.
So now let's talk about the actual targets, where you aim your strikes to maximize damage.
Okay, yeah, that's crucial.
The manual goes into great detail about the different striking surfaces on the body.
Like what parts of your body you use to hit.
Exactly. The most common is the fist, using the first 2 knuckles.
Right, the classic punch.
But they also talk about using the heel of your hand, the edge of your hand for a karate chop, the forearm for blocking, and the elbow.
Oh, the elbow can be nasty.
Yeah, especially in close quarters combat. They even say you can use your head as a last resort.
Ouch, that sounds painful.
Yeah, not ideal. And then you've got your knees, feet, instep, heel, ball of the foot, even the toe of your boot.
They're using every part of the body as a weapon.
Exactly. And knowing where to strike is just as important.
Right, some parts of the body are more vulnerable than others.
The manual actually includes diagrams showing the key vulnerable points on the front and back of the body.
Okay, let's go through those.
So on the front, you've got the eyes, the bridge of the nose, the chin, the Adam's apple, the ribs, the solar plexus, the stomach, the groin, the knees, the shins, and the ankles.
Oof, a lot of sensitive areas there.
Yeah, and on the back, there's the skull, the temple, the base of the nose, the jaw, the collarbone, the base of the cerebellum, the base of the neck, the kidneys, the tailbone, the calves, and the Achilles tendon.
So they're giving soldiers a complete roadmap of the body's weak points.
Absolutely, and they emphasize that knowing these points is crucial for delivering effective strikes.
Makes sense.
Now, let's go back to those stances and talk about them in more detail.
All right, let's do it.
So the natural stance is like standing with your feet shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward, knees slightly bent, weight evenly distributed, hands and fists, and your back straight.
It's a balanced, ready position.
Right. They even compare it to a rider on a horse because it gives you good stability and allows for quick side-to-side movement.
Okay, I can see that.
Then there's the forward stance where your feet are wider apart and turned out at a 45-degree angle. Your knees are bent and your upper body is facing forward.
That sounds like a strong stance.
It is, and it's good for moving in any direction, forward, backward, or sideways.
Versatile.
Yeah. And finally, you have the fighting stance, where your front foot is pointing forward and carries most of your weight, while your back foot is turned out at a 90-degree angle.
So you're leaning forward, ready to move quickly.
Exactly. This stance is designed for fast forward movement, perfect for closing the distance with your opponent.
Makes sense.
Now, the manual also describes some specific techniques, like the lunge punch.
Oh, yeah, the lunge punch, that's a classic.
It is. It's used when there's a gap between you and your opponent, and you basically lunge forward with a punch, using the momentum to add power.
So you're using your whole body weight behind the punch.
Exactly. And then there's the elbow strike, which is really effective in close quarters fighting.
Yeah, the elbow is like a natural weapon.
It is. You can use it to target the solar plexus, the ribs, the chin, and it's really good for breaking free from a grab or a chokehold.
Okay, so it's both offensive and defensive.
Right. And the manual gives an example of how to block and counter an overhead strike. You step forward into that forward stance, raise your hands to block the attack, and then immediately counter with a hammer fist strike.
So it's a seamless transition from defense to offense.
Exactly. Then they talk about back kicks, the back thrust kick, and the back snap kick.
Okay, so now we're getting fancy.
Well, they're both powerful kicks. The back thrust kick is where you drive your heel straight back into your opponent, and the back snap kick is where you whip your foot up and back, usually targeting the groin.
Ouch, those sound effective and painful.
Yeah, and they even give an example of combining the elbow strike with the back snap kick.
Talk about a 1-2 punch or kick, I guess.
Right. And then there's the knee strike where you basically drive your knee up into your opponent's groin, face, or kidneys.
Another close quarters technique.
Yeah, really powerful at close range. And they even mention that kicks, while mostly used for attacking, can also be used to block.
So you can use any part of your body for offense or defense?
Absolutely. And finally, the manual stresses the importance of combining all these techniques into fluid combinations.
Right, because in a real fight, it's not just going to be one move at a time.
Exactly. They talk about different combinations like blocking repeatedly until you can counterattack, overwhelming your opponent with a series of attacks, or using block attack sequences to control the fight.
So it's about being adaptable and chaining moves together.
Right, and they emphasize the importance of balance, precision, focus, speed, power, and following through with your attacks.
They want to make sure you're finishing the fight.
Yeah, there's no room for hesitation in a real combat situation.
Makes sense.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. This deep dive into the U.S. Army Special Forces Manual has shown us how they combine ancient martial arts traditions with modern military tactics to create a truly effective hand-to-hand combat system.
Yeah, it's a fascinating blend of history, science, and practical fighting techniques.
And even though this system is designed for soldiers in combat, the underlying principles like focus, discipline, and understanding how your body generates power can be applied to other areas of life as well.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
Right? Maybe there's something we can learn from these techniques, even if we're never in a real fight.
I think you're right. It makes you think about how mental and physical discipline can be applied to anything you do.
Exactly. Maybe it's worth exploring martial arts and self-defense further, even just for the personal growth aspect.
It might give us a new perspective on our own potential.
What do you think?
I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, me too.